Carlos Fuentes. Born November 11th, 1928, in Panama City, Panama, he died May 15th, 2012, in Mexico City, Mexico. Carlos Fuentes was a Mexican novelist, and he lived in 4 other countries other than the U.S. throughout his life, being Uruguay, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. Throughout his childhood, he did live in the U.S., so he was there in Washington, D.C. from 1934 to 1940. He developed a huge admiration for FDR's New Deal, which meant he had a lot of interest in foreign affairs, public work, financial reforms, anything pertaining to it. He was really interested in it. So he ended up studying law at an institute in Geneva, which is in Spanish. I will be disrespecting them if I tried to pronounce it. But then the other college that he studied law at was the National University of Mexico. And after the universities, he finds a job as a secretary to Mexican representatives in an international law commission to the United States. And then after that position, he gets director of cultural affairs at the Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So he's very involved with the government, foreign affairs, he's very interested in it. So as a teenager, he's living in Mexico City. He's as well working as for foreign affairs, but for the United States and the International Labor Organization. And during this time, he publishes his first novel, Where the Air is Clear, which has a lot to do with his Mexican ties to politics and everything. He had such patriotism for Mexico that he ended up being denied entrance into the U.S. at one point in his life due to suspected communism ties. The book does not give you a specific date or time frame of this occurrence, just in his adulthood. He also ended up questioning a lot of U.S. policies, laws, and saying a lot of offensive things when he was younger, but he ended up still having some type of admiration for the country that he lived in for a little bit of his life. So, in Fuentes' novels, he uses a great deal of techniques for modernism, which he uses a stream of consciousness narrative, which will help portray the inner lives and motives of his characters in that story. In one of my researches, like my sources, it was titled Carlos Fuentes, Life, Work, and Criticism. The author, Alfonso Gonzalez, he is analyzing authors from the same genre and time period as Carlos Fuentes' writings. And Gonzalez claims Fuentes' work to have paraphrases, little critical insight, putting little attempt on assessing value on themes, characteristics, and I understood that by thinking in his story Aura, Consuelo confuses Felipe Montero by calling her pet rabbit and her niece both her companion shortly after another by saying, "I told you she'd come back, my companion," right after the rabbit leaves and Aura comes in. It was almost as if she was saying they were the same and that she was coming back but in different form. So, coming into that, Aura was written purposely to read the reader in suspense as to what is real, imagined, or supernatural. My sense, the rabbit and Aura, what is real, what is supernatural. In my other resource, the author Buenavides states Fuentes to use tragicomic isolation in Aura, meaning he's using both tragic and comic techniques, which he uses an emptiness and logic on top of that, and an inability to outrun one's past to put all of these themes together. Buenavides also says that Fuentes has the gift for savage satire, as well as the of history's wreckage, as the horror of history's wreckage. We'll get into that one, because that's a lot to unpack. So Fuentes makes use of second-person narrative in his novel, and it is as if Montero is reading the story, but it is only to make the actual reader and the audience of this story feel more insightful and in touch and, in grasp of what his life is, what he's doing, just make you feel more like a part of the story. So the segment that I will go in depth in is the last paragraph of page 850, continuing on to page 851. It's a huge passage, but the first quotation is speaking to is speaking to Consuelo, what I interpreted to be from her husband, the general, apologizing for the children he could not give her through her marriage. He is asking her for forgiveness, for Consuelo to find some type of satisfaction, to just live with them, just be happy that it's just them two. But she's insisting sick imaginings, medicinal remedies, gardening, and he ends up like claiming her crazy, like seeing things. But Consuelo exclaims, "I've recreated her. I can invoke her. I can give her my life with my own life." And it seems that Consuelo has come up with a concoction that includes herself to make this child that she was not able to be handed, that she could not be given. She made it. She is putting herself in this, to get what she wants. And she goes, "Don't stop me. I'm going towards my youth, and my youth is coming towards me." So this is where I start to come and think that, okay, maybe the rabbit and Aura is a part of her, that this concoction involves all three of them, because throughout the story there were many things that they did alike that they could not do unless they were in conjunction, and then just a lot of the things that they did were in very, similarities. They were very similar. So, yeah, it just seemed like they were the same, but again, the story was written purposely to be interpreted up to you, so it could be supernatural, they could not be connected at all. I guess it's up to the reader how they feel. Aura was mysterious and would not leave. Yeah, Aura would not leave Consuelo. Was never out at the same time as the rabbit, which I noticed. That was a little strange. The rabbit was never out at the same time that Aura was. And at the end of the story, Montero comes into Aura's room after his reading of that passage about Consuelo not getting her children. And he lays with Aura, and he wants to be with her, wants to give her everything, and she's like, "No, just lay with me. I don't want to do anything, just kiss my face." And he just lets his desire take over himself. Just goes for it, gets what he wants, and she turns frail, she turns yellow, she turns into Consuela. She can't, it's not her. And to which Consuelo goes, "Let me recover my strength, and I will bring her back." So the theme of inability to outrun one's past comes in right here. So what I think is that Consuelo can't seem to rest. She wants Aura to live on for her like a mirror, with a man finishing the writing of her own husband's. Because Felipe got this job to finish her unfinished business for her husband, writing what he could not finish, died too early to do. And what I noticed was that there were 4 plates at the table throughout the story, and 3 of them were always filled. It was the mother, it was Consuelo, it was Aura, and it was Felipe. Well, there was a 4th chair open. Now, what if that chair was supposed to mirror the general for Montero, because Consuela and Aura were mirroring each other? I mean, it seemed like they were wanting to bring the past back, and Aura lived through, Consuelo lived through Aura, have a longer life with Montero, finishing the job of the general that Consuelo and General Lorente could not do together. So they're living on through someone else to do it. That's what I found to be the supernatural aspect of this, because it's a lot to unpack. You have to choose what is actually real, what is happening, and in the long run, Montero was a lost history teacher. He was 26, 27 years old, and he was just flipping through a newspaper and just so happened to come across something that just screamed his name. It was screaming nothing but to bring him there and nobody else. And when he shows up, Consuelo knows who he is, as if she was writing it for him, as if he was the next General Lorente to come in and fix that job for them, as if he was the only person to do it. So what I think is strange and what I cannot put my hand on is the connection between the general and Montero. Like, how do they know each other? What is their connection? Because I understand how Consuelo is Aura and Aura is Consuelo, and how the rabbit plays in, and is how did Montero know that that newspaper article was for him? Why was he so drawn to it? How is he the perfect candidate to finish the general's unfinished business? That's my last question on my paper. And that just really speaks to me. I really think that this story was amazing. It opened my eyes to like a huge like jackhammer in a story that I would not have expected. Like the part where it mentions that Aura is like killing something. Like I think it was a rabbit. Honestly, I think she was killing a rabbit. When Montero goes into Consuelo's room, she's like doing the imaginative images of the exact same thing. Like she's killing the air, but Aura's actually killing something. So they're the same. And I mean that was the whole point of Carlos Fuentes' writings, is that he wanted you to be confused. He wanted you to understand it in your own mind. And I think that's why the outside resources gave such like a dull explanation to him, that it was very little insight, very little assessing, and it's because he wanted you to do it. He wanted the reader to figure out their explanation to what he was writing. And I think that's amazing. I love stories that you get to figure out where you connect to it and how everything plays out. I think that's amazing. I really loved reading this.